Wake up! You're asleep at the wheel. I'm Josh Wheel, and this week we are reviewing Uncanny X-Men Disassembled. Now, this has always kind of been an interesting title to me. I mean, just the Disassembled because it brings you back to the kind of House of M time, Avengers Disassembled, and those stories. And the X-Men didn't really have that was a very that was a Bendis-led initiative, and the X-Men weren't really involved. And this is in some ways their version of that. It's also in a lot of ways the end of an era, right? The era that we could say begun with Grant Morrison's New X-Men, right? The Scott Emma era, which went into Joss Whedon's Astonishing X-Men, and then through, all of the Legacy and the Schism, and, No More Mutants, and then Hope and Messiah Complex and Messiah War and Second Coming into AVX, which led to what at some point people start calling like the Lost Years, kind of that era through the Bendis era, which I'm a huge fan of, but I know is kind of hit or miss for some people. And then was followed by the really Lost Years. The Cullen Bunn, Dennis Hopeless, Mark Guggenheim eras of kind of treading water, not really developing characters, moving anyone on the board, just kind of like having something. It's not, the extraordinary stuff, the IVX stuff. But then, we started seeing near the end of that with the rainbow colors, the gold, the blue, into red, Tom Taylor's red, and the black one-shots. And then this, we get this, right? And this we know now was designed with the Hoxpox in mind, with Hickman's, ultimate kind of new starting board, right? The recreation of the mutant world we can tell stories in. And so this is the last big X-Men story, right? And I think it was a little misinterpreted at first, because it was volume 1 of this line. Like, there were other Uncanny X-Men stories in this coming after. And so we'll talk about that in a second, but let's do our credits. So, Uncanny X-Men Disassembled, written by the team of Ed Brisson, Matt Rosenberg, and the Kelly Thompson. I love this team idea, the way they did this. When you hear the writers talk about it, I think they complement each other so well. Ed Brisson is really, his strengths lay in, the big gun action scenes. You got Matt Rosenberg, whose strengths are in his, relentless pace and use of secondary characters. And then you have Kelly Thompson, that's all about just the relationships and the personal dynamics, and they complement each other so well. It allows them to paint on a huge board with a huge cast and feel like there's never a weak part in this story. In case you can't tell, I love this book. So, writing team. Kelly Thompson, the Kelly Thompson, also the first woman to ever write on Uncanny X-Men. We've never had a solo Uncanny X-Men, a writer, a female writer who was the sole writer of an issue of Uncanny X-Men in over 600 issues. But Kelly Thompson being on the team is the only one. There's actually only been a couple of women who've ever written. You had Weezy's long run on X Factor, but that was not the flagship book. You had G. Willow Wilson grabbing a couple issues of the X-Men run. It came behind like Brian K. Wood and Guggenheim, but that was like kind of a lost book too. This is big. Now, art, because this came out on a weekly basis, there's a cycle of artists. Mahmud Asrar did the first issue. R.B. Silva and Adriana di Benedito did a couple of them scattered through. Then Yildary, Cinar, and Perez finished some of the others. And that art was really cohesively held together. I mean, you can still see the difference in the styles of the artist, but really held together by a consistent colorist of Rachelle Rosenberg, who's done amazing work and is incredibly talented, because it's not just that like this is her color style, but this was the color style for this story. Because if you see her work on the remaining Uncanny issues in the Rosenberg run, she does a completely different job painting a completely different world, really, that Rosenberg's telling stories in that one. And just so good at setting the tones. So into this story. Now, I think one of the things that people kind of misinterpreted when this first came out was, they thought this was like the build-up Act 1 opening arc, despite the fact that the title was called Disassembled. Like, it was not a build-up. It was a breaking down. We start with the team together. Things are falling apart. And knowing that there were going to be a couple more trades worth of issues after this, and then getting the Hickman announcement after this started. But people didn't know that. I think the first impression was that, oh my God, they're taking this away from Rosenberg right after they give it to him. Not that, hey, Rosenberg was hired to do a specific job to bridge this kind of Rainbow and Lost era into the Hoxpox era, into the Krakoa era that's coming. And so this is a bridge. And this is not Act 1 of 3. This is Act 1 of 2. This is your opening half. And this does disassemble because this splits the X-Men into 2 worlds by the end of it, right? The best possible world for mutants, kind of, like in a version, mutant utopia in the age of X-Men, and mutant dystopia, the worst possible world, which is actually the 616 universe, which is also crazy, like that the worst dystopia wasn't this alternate reality or you or bad future, like that was our world. It sucked here. The utopia, the best place, was something that had to be imagined. But we get to see half the team experiences one, and they think it sucks. The other half, the team experiences the other. They know it sucks. And then they get together and they realize none of this shit is working. And that's your springboard for Hoxpox. Like, that puts all the characters in a place where Moira and Xavier can come to them and be like, it's time. And they're like, yeah, because the rest of this shit ain't working. So this book gets us there. And what it does is it starts with a huge team of mutants. You see it right from the opening page. You got the beautiful cover art. I have this poster in my classroom here. And where's our beautiful team of mutants to start off? Haha. Big team. All these characters. Right, we're going Jean, Kitty, Bishop, Storm, Laura, Jubilee, Nightcrawler, Betsy, right, the young kids, everyone, Polaris, we're bringing in Beast. We've got so many different kind of off of the Rainbow teams, off of the side books, everyone together. This big story that's really tying in things from Rosenberg's other work in Multiple Man and New Mutants Lost Souls and Phoenix Resurrection, kind of bringing all of these little threads together with, with the multiple Jamies and the things that are going on. And it starts bringing back all of these 90 characters as well. So we get a bunch of really cool kind of drops on, there's Sugarman in here, there's Dark Beast, there's Legion, there's X-Man, there's Legion, there's X-Man. Sexy Jesus X-Man, by the way. We get X-Man being his version of Apocalypse, right? With Apocalypse kidnapped and on a council with Kitty Pryde and a douchebag politician. Oh, there's Sugar Man. Right? And just the image of Apocalypse all chained up is so great. But you have Nate just going wild, right? He's starting to kidnap. He's trying to figure out how to form the new world. He creates his 4 horsemen of life, right? A horseman of peace, a horseman of prosperity, a horseman of life, right? He's doing the anti-apocalypse. There it is. Dude has just flexing his mad Jesus powers and tying Apocalypse up. That level of power. And, you know, we're running this big story. So many threads, so many teams of characters. You know, they wind up in the Age of Apocalypse. We've got young kids winding up in the Age of Apocalypse. We've got a nice little Glob Herman side story. We've got our main team trying to get back. We've got, you know, Betsy trying to figure out where she is with Warren after all of their weird stuff and the Cullen Bun stuff. And, you know, Warren being turned into the angel of life instead of the angel of death. And, you know, but then Betsy, you know, stabbing him in the brain with a psychic knife to bring him back. And, you know, him being pissed because she tore him away from the version of peace, like the most peaceful he's been in his life after being subjected to all the torments of Apocalypse over the years. And you know, you got their dynamics. You get so many great just relationships working here. So many great dynamics. And then in the end, it all just comes to a head. You have Jean, Mama, right? Jean, who has really become the mother. You know, the emergence from teen Jean has really been beautiful colors, beautiful art, right? That she's the mama. She's Rachel Gray's mama. She's Nate Gray's mama. She's Cable's mama. She is becoming the powerful maternal figure of the X-Men that she's really kind of been circling around and should have been for years and years and years. This is my favorite version of Jean, by the way. Mama Jean. If you've read Lost Shadows, you know, and I think we've talked about that on here too. And we finish at the end. Nate is just done. Sucks them all up. They're all gone. We've got a world without X-Men now. And it goes two ways, right? So we get this huge, amazing, fun, big cast, big action, big continuity tie-ins, big relationships, all of the things for all of the characters, just the best of everything, because we've got these three great writers all bringing their diverse strains to the story, setting us up for the best of times, worst of times, Part B, the Age of X-Men and the Rosenberg run, the light and the dark, you know, and it's just so good. It works as its own standalone. It works as the first half of that. It works as the bridge taking us out of the lost years into Hoxpox. It works on so many levels. This is Jordan D. White, Crackshot, cracking his knuckles and saying, X-Men's back. Watch what we can do. And I absolutely love this. If you haven't picked this up yet, it is a $40 trade, but it is worth every damn penny. I highly recommend it. The nice thing about expensive trades is if you ever get like a 20-25% off coupon, you get a lot more bang for your buck using them on the expensive ones and the cheap ones. Get Disassembled. It is so good. Right? And the other thing is this is really like the last big story with these characters in our kind of regular 616 world this date, because it's been a long time since we had a really good story. Like the Bendis ones and the Schism era, like it was the X-Men versus the X-Men for so long. We got to go way back until we have really great like X-Men versus stories. And so this gives us that, you know, one last time. Rosenberg and Brisson and Thompson taught us how to say goodbye. And, I love it. I love it. I want to just lay down and go to sleep with it and just spoon because it's so good. Uncanny X-Men Disassembled. That's it for this week. Thank you for joining us. I know I went a little long. It's a little long of a trade. There's a lot to kind of cover or talk about, and I didn't even show you that much of the beautiful art because there's so many good artists in there. But if you haven't read it, you should just read it yourself. X-Men Disassembled. I'll see you again next week. Make sure you like the video. Check out the rest of the posts on the page. We got some good recaps. If you like Excalibur, if you like Teeny Howard's new Excalibur issue, check out my recap of Excalibur 55. It is a Betsy and Brian centric issue, much like the new Excalibur 1 by Teeny and Marcus 2. We've got some other ones, X-Men Blue, from last week from the Cullen Bunn era, number 6. We've got some new shirts. Check out the shirts. There's a Lucas Ackerman one on there. If you haven't seen Lucas Ackerman stuff, he's got so many great X-Men shirts. So check out the rest of the blog. Come back here next week for another video. And wake up, because you're asleep at the wheel.